Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Monday, April 21st, 2025. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, meltdown at the Defense Department. New York Times reveals Pete Hegseth shared attack plans on another separate party chat. Also on the program today, Pope Francis dies shortly after meeting with J.D. Vance.
Is he the Antichrist?
Just asking questions.
Well, he'd have to be more charismatic than that.
In the wake of the Van Hollen trip, 4 Democratic lawmakers traveled to El Salvador to secure Kilmar Garcia's return. Meanwhile, Supreme Court over the weekend temporarily blocks deportations under Trump's Alien Enemies Act. A district court judge in Georgia issues a temporary restraining order against visa revocation for international students. Meanwhile, 60,000 Americans on track to lose rental assistance as funding for the emergency housing vouchers dries up. And after saying that the threat to Harvard was an administrative mistake, Trump regime to cut another $1 billion of research aid to that very university that gave them pushback. Meanwhile, D.C. District Court judge freezes the Trump regime's attempt to fire 90% of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau workers. U.S. measles, however, rise past 800 cases. Congratulations. That across 24 states. And bird flu hits U.S. cattle herds hard. Turns out Russia intensified attacks after calling for an Easter truce. And the Israeli probe of its assassination of 15 Palestinian medics finds, quote, professional failures, end quote. Lastly, Google back in court today as the DOJ is going to offer its solution to remedy Google's advertising monopoly, break up its business. All this and more in today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is
Fun Day Monday.
Fun Day Monday.
Welcome back, Sam.
Thank you very much. I am back from vacation. I've just gotten back from the Vatican. No, sorry. That's not the case.
Such a slip up.
It was such a slip up. No, I was not there. I was actually down in Mississippi, which is not, I don't often vacation there, but I was there. We had there's some Majority Report listeners and fans down there. That was fun to bump into those folks.
It must have been a trip for them to see you down there.
I think it was a little bit surprising. I did a little crappie fishing. For those down south, know something about crappie. It's a big perch.
Did you catch anything?
There was a couple of fish that we caught. I was not one of the persons who caught it.
Oh.
But
Sad.
But it was fun. We had a fun time. And good to see that the news has turned and things are doing swimmingly.
Yep. Nothing happened last week. Nothing at all.
We've got a ton to talk about, obviously. And a lot of it is focused around legal cases that are happening. You know, I am of two minds when it comes to Pete Hegseth, because on one hand, if we're going to have destruction of our government functioning, or, sort of slash and burn tactics. I think I would prefer it to happen with our military because we seem to have so much redundancy, waste, and unnecessary expenditures and global size. I don't know if we're up to 1,000 bases around the world now. Seems out of fashion to count how many we have. And despite the fact that we have one of the most peace-loving presidents maybe in the history of the country, we have been now bombing the Houthis in Yemen for close to 45 days. I think it may be even a little bit more.
On Israel's behalf, essentially, because the Houthis in Yemen have been engaging in a shipping blockade off of their own shores, which is kind of a tactic that's been used throughout time and memoriam by nations. But the United States calls that terrorism because
they were observing the ceasefire, too, just to add on to what you're saying, until Israel broke the ceasefire.
Yes, and they've been engaging in the blockade to put pressure on Israel and the United States to stop funding this genocide of the Palestinians.
And let's be clear, U.S. shipping through in that lane is, I think, in single digits percentage-wise, if not, then just slightly more. And for a country that claims to want to impose tariffs and force some type of parity between us and the rest of the world, why would we be there protecting the shipping lanes for other countries?
J.D. Vance said that in the leaked chat, which was saying that this might be incongruent with our more isolationist messaging on Europe, because they were claiming it was to help the Europeans. It's
funny you bring up group chat, because we know that because Mike Waltz, the national security advisor, set up a group chat on Signal, which is an app that you can't install on government devices. And
well, you can, but you can't do privileged communications on that. You can't do classified communications on it.
Well, I mean, plans to attack a country, specific plans when planes and whatnot are taking off. Why would that be classified?
Right.
That was the chat where they accidentally added a reporter. Well, it turns out that Pete Hegseth had another Signal chat on his own personal phone again. And this one included all the people, if you're Defense Department secretary, that you need to bounce off to, the details of an imminent attack about 2 hours out, 3 hours out. Various aides, his private attorney, who recently got recommissioned to work as, I guess, a JAG in the Navy, so that he could be close to Pete. His brother, who has nothing to do with these type of attacks, and of course his wife. Because here's the thing that I found when I was married. There would be a lot of times I'd have work communication, but then my wife might say, hey, will you pick up something at the supermarket? Combining that is a stroke of genius.
Absolutely. So it's called the Department of Government Efficiency.
Exactly. So there's this, honey, will you pick up some stuff at the supermarket? Yes. And incidentally, in 2 hours, we've got these type of jets flying off of this carrier and those type of missiles that will be hitting this target. And I thought you should just know.
Well, he's got to be open and transparent with her, and she probably has some rules about that given past behavior.
Oh, well, that also could be part of it. I want to hear everything, including the top secret stuff. So Hegseth's wife, Jennifer, and to be fair, she's probably qualified to have this information because she was a former Fox News producer, was on the chat called, and this was apparently a chat that was set up prior to his confirmation, called Defense Team Huddle.
Let's go, team. Let's kill those civilians in Yemen on behalf of Israel.
Hegseth shared information, this is from the New York Times, about the Yemen strikes in the Defense Team Huddle chat. At roughly the same time, he was putting the same details in the other Signal chat group that included senior U.S. officials and, inadvertently, the Atlantic magazine. This is people familiar with Hegseth's chat group. The Defense Team Huddle Signal chat until recently included about a dozen of Mr. Hegseth's top aides, including Joe Casper, Mr. Hegseth's chief of staff, and Mr. Parnell, who is the Pentagon chief spokesperson. The chat also included two senior advisors to Mr. Hegseth, Dan Caldwell and Darren Selnick, who were accused of leaking unauthorized information last week and were fired. Caldwell and Selnick were among three former top Pentagon officials who proclaimed their innocence in a public statement on Saturday in response to the leak inquiry that led to their dismissals.
Yeah.
Now, it's unclear what they are accused of leaking, but my guess is that since that time of their firing, they may have leaked this. But here is Pete Hegseth explaining all of this away. It makes total sense when you hear him.
Let's hear him out.
He was at the Easter egg event on the White House lawn. Now, this is the one where I think all of the cabinet officials had to wear patches. Maybe it's on his back. We can't see it. Of the company that's sponsoring them for the day. That's the way they raised it.
Like the NASCAR jackets?
Exactly. I mean, who knows what's on the back of there? It could be, he could have a Meta patch or something like that on the back of his sport coat.
What do you want to say, sir, about the Signal chat controversy?
You know, what a big surprise that a few leakers get fired and suddenly a bunch of hit pieces come out from the same media that peddled the Russia hoax. Won't give back their Pulitzers. They got Pulitzers for a bunch of lies. Pulitzers for a bunch of lies. And on hoaxes, time and time and time again. And as they peddle those lies, no one ever calls them on it. See, this is what the media does. They take anonymous sources from disgruntled former employees, and then they try to slash and burn people. Their reputation.
It's really
I'm sorry. Can we pause for a second? Because like the last time he did this denial with the nobody was texting war plans, he looks right into the lens. He breaks the fourth wall. It's a tell for him. Also, people on the internet pointed out that he only has one sideburn shaved.
Wait, what? Which sideburn does he have?
So
shaved?
this one is significantly, the one on the left side of his face as we see him is significantly longer than the one on the right. And once I've said that, you're not going to be able to notice anything else in this clip. So that's why I didn't say it up top.
He was in a hurry, I guess.
To be fair, he probably is shaving past, after, 5:30 a.m. And we know it, 5 o'clock is when you can start drinking.
Right.
He just gets rid of the a.m. or the p.m., I think is probably. I think what he's also doing is he looks into this camera. I think there's a bunch of other cameras. And I think he's like taking his turn, looking straight into these cameras. And that's how you know he's telling the truth.
I feel like that's too much like, oh, you came straight from Fox News into this role, because normal people who have your position don't do that all the time.
Right.
No, of course not.
Also,
that's his scam. But let's just be clear.
But how can it be the fake news? I'm sorry. And also the disgruntled employees confirm leaking to the press.
Exactly.
It can't both be that the media is making it up. And he basically confirms that those people who they threw under the bus, Caldwell, Selnick, Carol, Casper, these are the four that were fired because of this first Signal gate. Then they're talking to the press saying, hey, we got screwed over. It wasn't our bad.
That also raises the question of who are you sharing these details with? If it is this easy for this stuff to come out publicly now, right? Like where it's quite clear who it is ultimately gave this stuff. How hard would it have been for any of these people to sort of like signal to advance? I mean, we know of at least 30 people who are on these publicly available. I mean, these are insecure devices, and any sort of country, whether friend or foe, that has any type of intelligence agency, which is virtually all of them, the first thing they're going to do is try and bug the personal phones of people entering into government, and particularly those who are maybe coming from an arena where they haven't had to do this in the past, like, say, the weekend hosts of Fox and Friends. And the idea that this information, battle plans, you want to keep out of the hands of people, just the fact that they fire people who have the ability to expose this is indication that they have been really mismanaging their OPSEC, as it were.
Yeah, these haters who know everything that is outside the lines that we're doing.
Yeah, let's make them really mad by firing them so we can protect Pete. Like, it would have just been so much smarter for Trump to fire Pete Hegseth, and then he wouldn't have had to deal with any of this, because Hegseth's already, he's playing with house money here. He shouldn't be in this position.
Hegseth, it would be easy to fire Hegseth, except for the fact that, every time Hegseth needs Trump to stick up for him, that makes Hegseth that much more willing to do whatever Trump tells him to.
I think Trump also likes him because of all of the skeletons in his closet, too, because he thinks he's more easily controllable.
Without a doubt.
And time again. And as they peddle those lies, no one ever calls them on it. See, this is what the media does. They take anonymous sources from disgruntled former employees. And they try to slash and burn people and ruin their reputations. Not going to work with me, because we're changing the Defense Department, putting the Pentagon back in the hands of warfighters, and anonymous smears from disgruntled former employees on old news doesn't matter. So I'm happy to be here at the Easter egg roll with my dad and my kids, because this is what we're doing it for.
Now he's introducing everybody to who's on the Signal chat. My dad's over there. He was on the chat. Here's my kids. They were on the chat. This is my kids' elementary school teacher. We put them on the chat. Kids are getting good grades now. Go ahead.
Maybe have the kids go play instead of backing you up on your media
exactly.
hit.
Come over here and defend Dad.
He's learned from Elon.
These kids right here. This is why we're fighting the fake news media. This is why we're fighting slash and burn Democrats. This is why we're fighting hoaxsters. This group, this group right here, full of hoaxsters that peddle anonymous sources from leakers with access to grind, and then you put it all together.
Pause it. Wait a second.
News.
How do we know they're anonymous sources, but he knows who they are?
Well, that's what I'm saying. He's admitting that it's the disgruntled people.
Both.
Yeah.
One, if it's disgruntled leakers,
right,
it can't be a hoax. But also, what do you mean they're anonymous? You clearly know who it is. They were people who were on this chat.
Right, who you then fired. Then on Saturday they put out a letter, some of them saying this was unfair. And then what do you know, on Sunday there's a report about that Hegseth added them to a second chat.
All right, let's see who else he was involved in this chat. I think he's got all of them. He brought them all to the thing today.
Anonymous sources from leakers with access to grind, and then you put it all together as if it's some news story. And we know exactly what it is.
With big breasts? Is that what he was trying to say there? Wait a second, go back. Hold on for a second. Why did he say
news story? He's like, it's a hefty. It's got girth. It's got
access to grind, and then you put it all together as if it's some news story. And what we know exactly what it is. So I'm really proud of what we're doing for the president, fighting hard across the board, and I'm going to go roll some Easter eggs with my kids. Thank you very much. Have spoken to the president, and we are going to continue fighting on the same page all the way. Come on, guys.
Crazy to have your kids though.
Unbelievable. Kids, I need you guys to back me up here.
Oh, I tried my soundboard, but the nobody was texting war plans one was right there. We'll figure that out, but yeah. I don't know. Does he survive this?
Yeah.
Okay, probably.
100%. 100%. I mean, it'll take a while, but there's going to be more, I would imagine. It doesn't seem like they have really locked this thing up much.
Like, Biden had those classified files that he reported that were at his personal home, and then asked his own Department of Justice to appoint a special counsel to look into if any information was leaked. Like the idea that this would happen for this administration is so laughable, but like that's a way bigger breach than Biden hanging on to some classified material accidentally and then reporting it, and then they did a double check with a DOJ special counsel investigation. Like, this is such an enormous leak that in any other situation they would have the DOJ look into it.
Oh, but, my God!
Yeah,
I mean, I got to tell you that if I had anybody close to me, if I was in the military, I'd be a little bit concerned about, how secure things are. I don't know that I would want to go out on some type of mission when you've got this type of like sieve. It's a sieve. That's it. I mean,
if they take some sort of casualty, if something gets shot down or a boat gets blown up or something like that, they're going to investigate it and see all of this lack of discipline.
Well, you also wonder, would you hear about it? But we've got a lot more to cover. First, a couple of words from a sponsor. Want to thank Cozy Earth for sponsoring this episode. Prioritize sleep, prioritize you, because every great day starts with a restful night. Sleep better with Cozy Earth. Go to CozyEarth.com. Use the code Majority Report to unlock an exclusive discount of up to 40%. We are getting into the Cozy Earth sheet season, in my opinion. This is one where things start getting a little bit warm. And the beauty of Cozy Earth sheets, for me, they're soft. They're also extremely durable. I have had many sheets that I have actually worn out. I am old enough to have sheets like that or have had. But Cozy Earth sheets are made from viscose, which is from bamboo. And it is temperature regulating. It's crazy soft. And of course, it is also super sustainable. Bamboo is like a weed. And the sheets are fantastic. What's also fantastic are the pajamas. And we are getting close to Mother's Day.
I got those for a mother for Christmas, and maybe the biggest hit of the whole holiday season.
Yes,
so
they're incredibly soft. They this is all about, Cozy Earth is all about like the incredibly soft fabrics that don't pill and last. I brought my favorite hoodie on my trip to Mississippi, my Cozy Earth, and also my joggers.
Whoa.
Yep. I just realized that half my wardrobe was Cozy Earth. You can try Cozy Earth risk-free for 100 nights. That's obviously for the sheets. They also have like things like duvets
I've got
and
the duvet.
pillowcases. And
Yes.
I have bath towels and bath mats. You can love it or you send it back. No questions asked. Plus, every bedding product comes with a 10-year warranty for long-lasting comfort. Durability and commitment to quality. That's what Cozy Earth bedding is all about. Cozy Earth products have a 10-year warranty. That's how much Cozy Earth believes in them. Make sleep a priority now. Visit CozyEarth.com. Use our exclusive code Majority Report for up to 40% off Cozy Earth best-selling sheets, towels, pajamas. Do yourself a favor. Get those pajamas and more. That's CozyEarth.com. Code Majority Report. And if you get a post-purchase survey, tell them, of course, you heard about Cozy Earth from right here. Also sponsoring the program today, one of our favorite sponsors, SunsetLakeSabadeh.com. 420 has come and gone, but that doesn't mean that our friends at SunsetLakeSabadeh.com are done celebrating yet. I also suspect these guys sort of celebrate it
all the time,
year round. For one more day only, one more day, when you use the checkout code 420, you will save 30% site-wide. Hemp flour, gummies, coffee, tinctures, even their new Vape cartridges all for 30% off. This stuff is very, very helpful. Even better, when you spend over $100, they'll throw in a 20-jar count of their microdose Vibe gummies for free. That has a little bit of THC. Here's the best part. 4.2% of sales will be donated to the Last Prisoner Project, which is an organization dedicated to reforming this nation's unjust cannabis laws and supporting those who have been negatively impacted by prohibition. We are also, on the majority report, going to match that percentage, whatever the sales will be. Sometimes it can get up there. So go check it out. 30% off is a great time to try all of their products. Their gummies, their tinctures, sleep aids, relaxation aids, just fun, coffee, fudge. Head right over to sunsetlakesabadeh.com. Use the coupon code 420. Save 30% site-wide. Sale ends April 22nd. That's tomorrow at midnight Eastern time. See their site for additional terms and restrictions. Check it out. Also, makes great gifts.
It does.
I brought some folks some gifts from sunsetlakesabadeh.com this past week. It was a hit. All right, let's get back to this. It is difficult trying to figure out the various stories that we should be covering at any given time, and things change so quickly. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, as you know, the Trump regime attempted to fire literally 90% of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau staff. And this was now, we're in this mode where it's shifting from Doge to just sort of like Russell Vogt. When we spoke to Gil Duran, he talked about this conference that took place, I think it was in September of 2024, called the Recode Conference, where the tech pros and the Heritage Foundation types basically got together and found how they were going to each pursue their parallel agendas. And Doge was very much a part of that. It is now shifting over to, as Elon Musk falls out of favor and it becomes clear that the $2 trillion that he was going to save, the $1 trillion that he was going to save, the $600 billion that he was going to save, the last count, he said he was going to save $150 billion in 2026. It's quite clear they're not even going to come close to that. This has all just been about destruction of government, saving no money, because of course the money just ends up slushing around and getting wasted. Russell Vogt became the acting director of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. He fired, again, 90% of the staff, ostensibly under a new legal authority that said, we only need to keep the people who can carry out the statutory mission of the organization. It's quite obvious that you can't get rid of 90% of the people on the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and do that. There was real worries that the mortgage market was going to crash, because the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is responsible for finding the average of mortgages across the country and posting that to allow for mortgage companies to know whether the mortgages that they're issuing, specific ones, conform in a way that will allow the FHA to underwrite those mortgages. And so there was concerns that the mortgage market was going to fall apart. There's been a stay by a judge in D.C., in the D.C. Circuit, to that. So that's where that remains now. The other major push by the Trump administration, of course, is to not only destroy our immigration system, but to target immigrants. But understand, this is just the beginning, right? Yeah. I mean, we're watching this. This is part of a much broader, I don't know if there's another way of describing it than fascistic, because we're seeing the detention of U.S. citizens. We're seeing the detention of just people traveling to the United States. We're seeing it conflate because it is for a bunch of reasons with protest, and particularly pro-Palestinian protest in this country. And we'll talk more about that in a bit. But right now, the sort of largest story within this massive bucket that emanates out of their anti-immigrant stance is about
Kilmar Abrego Garcia,
who was from Maryland and was swept up in the first couple of plane loads of Venezuelans sent to El Salvador. Now, he is El Salvadoran and specifically was protected by judge's order to not be deported to El Salvador.
To that
he was
one
still
place.
he was still going through proceedings.
Yep.
And the only thing that the judge had said at that point is you cannot send him to El Salvador because we've established that there is actual danger to him to be sent back there. Now, he was also on a list of people who ostensibly were not going to be rounded up. He was, and it was ostensibly because of tattoos or Chicago hats, and don't get me wrong, I'm not a fan of any of the Chicago sports teams, but that does not seem a reason to be sent to a gulag. Senator Van Hollen was sent down there, and one thing that went down there and met with him as a way of putting pressure both on the Bukele government, but essentially the U.S. government. And there has been an argument within the Democratic leadership as to whether Democrats should focus on this, because their whole strategy has been to do nothing. And, people would just get mad on their own. Well, the one thing that just before we even listen to what Van Hollen has to say that is clear is that Van Hollen, by doing this, was put on every single Sunday talk show. Now, that is the relevance of that is, I don't know how relevant it is, other than to say that it is dominating the news, or at least the Washington news. And in these instances, putting pressure on politicians in Washington is incredibly important if you want to gum up the works at all here.
And I saw Dave Weigel, who was reporting, and I forget where he was, but he was saying that he was overhearing this conversation across the country. This Kilmar Abrego Garcia case transcended traditional political news.
We saw it in Grassley's town hall. People were pissed.
People were really pissed, and this is credit to Van Hollen, whose actions here show how pathetic Chuck Schumer's leadership is in the Senate, and also calls out other senators who are not doing the same thing. For me, Adam Schiff, Alex Padilla of California, why have they not gone down there? Because it seems like the gay hairdresser who was taken, who was fleeing political violence in Venezuela and is now rotting in this El Salvador torture chamber, he looked like he might have been their constituent. We should have every Democratic senator doing this.
Here's Van Hollen. We got two clips from Van Hollen, and both of them are great. And I assume he's doing this on ABC News, but he was on NBC. He was on CBS.
Yep.
I think he was on CNN. I suspect he was on MSNBC.
He was on Fox News as well.
He was on Fox News. I imagine he said this in every one of those appearances.
I want you to listen to something that Gavin Newsom had to say about all the attention this case has gotten.
This is the distraction of the day, the art of distraction. This is the debate they want. This is their 80-20 issue as they've described it.
Is he right about the politics of this? I mean, the Republicans have taken great joy in portraying you as somebody who is defending somebody who's in this country illegally, they say is a gang member, and and they say that they're trying to just enforce the laws.
John, I don't think it's ever wrong to protect the Constitution and protect due process rights. I think conservative and libertarians, when they think about this case, the idea of somebody being deprived of their liberty and actually in a foreign prison without due process of law, that's something we should all fight for. I think what Americans are tired of is people who want to put their finger to the wind to see what's going on. And I would say that anyone that's not prepared to defend the constitutional rights of one man when they threaten the constitutional rights of all doesn't deserve to lead.
As you know, the president himself has been
right there.
attacking
I will
you
say,
by...
now, I will say this. I couldn't agree more with how despicable Gavin Newsom is being in this way. First off, I think he's also wrong on the merits, on the political side of this argument. But the idea that we can just look away from the refusal to provide due process is just insane to me. It's just insane. And from a I don't know how else to express it. Like, I don't know what else you would fight for if you would not fight for that.
And that voters understand that intrinsically. They understand that intrinsically, that when you're making these calculations, that you're not going to fight for them. This is why the Democrats are losing. This is not a process argument, too. I mean, I can understand the people's reluctance to go too deep into process arguments, but this is not a process argument. This is a fundamental, and like he did there, very easily translates into independent speak, as it were. It's also definitionally not an 80-20 issue, right. Which, that is...
Listen to too much Charlie Kirk, buddy.
I have never... Exactly. Well, we're here. He said it. His son loves Charlie Kirk, and he's been listening to a lot of it. Sounds like it. There's probably no issue, honestly, that I can think of off the top of my head where Republicans pull 80% to 20%, but there was a great piece, I read some of it on Friday, from Brian Cooper in the American Prospect, just 2 sentences from it. More recent polls show the priority of immigration plummeting and majority disapproval for Trump on the issue. In the most recent YouGov Economist poll, he is now 11 points underwater, down 16 points since he was inaugurated. Among Latinos, he is now 46 points underwater with that very very issue, which is like
he's lost a significant amount of his Latino support. In April, the beginning of this month, 64% of Hispanic voters saw Trump unfavorably. That popped up another 5 points this past week.
Yeah, and we're going to get more and more polling on this as this issue continues to marinate. So he's wrong on that broadly, because also Trump is going to poll positively with immigration because it's the number one issue that he's tied himself to ever since he came down on the escalator at Trump Tower 10 years ago and talked about how some, I assume, are good people, but most are whatever, rapists and criminals. Like, this is his brand. So that's why he polls positively on it, because he talks strongly about it. If, say, the Democrats decide to get behind something like, I don't know, taxing the rich, perhaps they'd be closer to an 80-20 issue on that front, instead of just constantly leading from behind with polling going first.
We should also say why Gavin Newsom is wrong about on both cases, right? Again, Guardian reports immigration officials detained a U.S. citizen for nearly 10 days in Arizona. This is according to court records and press reports. The NPR affiliate Arizona Public Media first reported a 19-year-old is an American citizen. Now, we talk about due process. Due process means we need to use all efforts, essentially, to establish that this person is who we think they are and is guilty of what we think they are. I want you to guess for a moment what this person's last name, if you can get a sense of what perhaps is the ethnic background of this person. Jose Hermosillo, a New Mexico resident visiting Arizona, was detained by Border Patrol agents in Nogales. That's according to them. A city along the Mexico border, about an hour south of Tucson. On April 8th, a Border Patrol official found Hermoso without the proper immigration documents. Now, part of that is probably because he's not an immigrant. And claimed that the young American had admitted entering the U.S. illegally from Mexico. 2 days later, the federal court document notes that Hermoso continued to claim he was a U.S. citizen. On April 17th, a federal judge dismissed his case. According to AZPM, that's Arizona Public Media, Hermosillo was visiting the Tucson area from Albuquerque, got lost without identification, was arrested by Border Patrol officials near its headquarters in Nogales. Hermoso's girlfriend family made numerous calls looking for him before they discovered he was being held at the Florence Correctional Center, a privately run immigration and customs enforcement facility. After his arrest, the court docket shows he was temporarily detained in the custody of U.S. Marshals. This is only after the family tracked him down. They provided officials with his birth certificate and social security card. Like, what if his girlfriend wasn't tracking where he was? What if this guy was just like a 25-year-old who doesn't keep in touch with his family very much? I mean, that's why you have due process. That's why you have due process. Let's listen to Van Hollen more.
Doesn't deserve the lead.
As you know, the president himself has been attacking you by pointing out some of the aspects of Abrego Garcia's record, including the fact that his wife had an order of protection against him in 2021 and alleged some pretty serious allegations of abuse, and even that he had detained her. Are you concerned about your defense of somebody? Obviously, everybody in this country, even those undocumented immigrants, have rights, but are you concerned about standing so forcefully with somebody that has, at least a questionable record?
I am not defending the man. I'm defending the rights of this man to due process. And the Trump administration has admitted in court that he was wrongfully detained and wrongfully deported. My mission and my purpose is to make sure that we uphold the rule of law, because if we take it away from him, we do jeopardize it for everybody else. And I do want to point out, Carl, yes, the Trump administration is trying to change the story. They're trying to detract attention. Here's where they should put their facts. They should put it before the court. They should put up or shut up in court. Because Judge Zinnes, who's the district court judge in this case, said, and I quote, they put no evidence linking Abrego Garcia to MS-13 or to any other terrorist activity, unquote. She says that a couple times in her decision. So, Mr. President and Republicans and anybody involved with this, take your facts to court. Don't put everything out on social media. As to his wife is the one who is asking us all to bring him home so his rights can be respected.
And in fact, even if he is a gang member, that doesn't mean you don't have rights, due process rights.
Well, exactly. But again, the place to litigate that is in the courts, and they've not put the evidence before the judge in the case. So again, put up or shut up in court.
I mean, that's the bottom line. We don't need a perfect, Abrego Garcia, I think he was on his way to pick up his son. Was that
I don't know. I don't remember how
when he got picked up.
Union worker in our building trades.
Yep.
You don't have to be the perfect victim here to be worthy of constitutional rights. The constitutional rights exist if there were no people in the country. The constitutional rights exist as the basis of the rights that exist that constrain the government in this instance. Due process is not just a right that is embedded in everyone who is a person in this country. It is also an obligation that the government has, and they're blowing through this. So good for Van Hollen for not rushing to sort of get caught into some argument as to whether Abrego Garcia is a good person or not. It's irrelevant.
Also, Carl asked 2 questions in that vein, back to back, by the way, where it's just like, this is just an embarrassment. His first question said that implied or repeated the Trump administration's claim that he was in a gang. Could you just maybe make a discernment and say that what they're saying in public completely contradicts some of the claims that they're making in court? Because, for example, Stephen Miller and Trump and the rest of the administration are now saying it's not a mistake, but in court they had said it was a mistake repeatedly, including Trump's own Solicitor General and ICE officials who were responsible for the picking up of this man. So it's just like, can the questions not keep moving towards the administration's false claims, regardless of how erroneous and outrageous they get?
We should also say, getting back to the political messaging that apparently, what's his face? Gavin Newsom has a problem with. The Supreme Court on Saturday night, temporarily at least, barred the Trump administration from deporting any more of Venezuelan migrants it accused of being gang members under the Alien Enemies Act. Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito apparently had issued a dissent about that decision, but the dissent was extremely weak and half-hearted, it sounds like. This government is directed not to remove any member of the putative class of detainees from the United States until further order of this court, justices said earlier in a brief unsigned decision. Apparently, there was a bus load of Venezuelan migrants that turned around sometime just as that was issued.
The court had issued their ruling at 12:55 in the morning, 12:55 a.m., an emergency stay on these deportations. And we're still, NBC has that report, right, where we don't know fully if they were trying to if they were yet in violation of what the Supreme Court was saying. I think still that time frame is coming out. But it looked like they were trying to do what they did previously with the other judge saying that they couldn't deport these people to make the claim, well, they're already on their way.
Let's be clear. This stay was issued at almost 1 a.m.
Yep.
On, I guess, what would be Saturday morning. And I think there is actually video of a bus turning around, but it's unclear what the timing was.
That number 3 might do that, right, Russ? Is that if we wanted to play number 3, that includes some of that footage, Sam?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let's play this just and to give you a sense of just there's multiple issues here, but obviously the biggest one is the failure of the Trump regime to allow for due process to establish that these people are who the government claims they are. There's another issue as to whether you can even invoke the Alien Enemies Act in this manner. But the primary issue is due process. There is the issue of due process as a constitutional obligation our government has. It is a duty our government has because every people who are within the jurisdiction of the United States have a right to due process. The other issue is just how bumbling and thuggish these ICE officers are. They're largely washouts or never could be's from other law enforcement agencies. They are basically being unshackled. They are rounding up whoever is easiest for them to round up. I mean, if they were rounding up all these dangerous gang members who are terrorist cells, we would be hearing about shootouts. It's amazing how easy it is for these people to round them up. I mean, they're sending out 6 people to arrest a doctoral student on the street in Somerville. But supposedly we're rounding up all of these terrorists and not a single gunshot is fired?
It's odd.
These are invading, occupying forces, and they're just laying down their arms and walking away? I don't get it. I mean, that's the other aspect about this. How much BS even their premise is. Here is the wife of Judy Rahl. Her husband, Eduardo Dabin Rahl, is a Venezuelan national who was detained by ICE because of tattoos.
Today, Judy Maldonado Rahl driving 6 hours from El Paso to the Bluebonnet detention facility. Her husband, Eduardo Dabuin Rahl, a Venezuelan national, among them.
Why did ICE say that your husband was detained?
Because of his tattoos.
In this video she shared, her husband making a plea hours before his then imminent deportation and denying he is a member of the Tren de Aragua gang, saying we are simply being unjustly judged because of our tattoos. Dabuin Rahl's wife says he came to the country legally in 2023 through a parole program, which the Trump administration has since tried to eliminate. But a federal judge earlier this week temporarily blocked that effort.
Has he been charged?
No, we don't have any charges. He's never been given anything.
NBC News was not able to locate any state or federal criminal records for Dabuin Rahl. On Friday night, he says he was among the Venezuelans heading to an airport at the exact same time a federal judge heard arguments from lawyers trying to stop the men's deportations.
They were told, well, you were lucky you were sent back because you were going to El Salvador, not Venezuela.
Then they turned back to the ICE facility. Several of the detainees, along with Dabuin Rahl, recording via video call their own testimonials to family, arguing they're wrongfully accused and holding up their removal orders. The men's futures, with the Supreme Court's order now even more in question.
Vaughn Hilliard joins us now from the White House. And Vaughn, the Trump administration filed a response to that Supreme Court order.
Jose, the White House is now formally asking the Supreme Court to stop its pause on these would-be deportation flights. And we asked DHS and ICE for more information on Dabuin Rahl's detention, but have not heard back yet. Jose?
Oh, wow. What a surprise. So not being forthcoming on that?
That was the group of migrants who were about to potentially be sent, or immigrants, people, who were about to be sent to that El Salvador torture chamber. And like, to just underline what the conditions are like there. The lights are on, blaring, LEDs, 24 hours a day. They don't get to go outside. They don't get to see a lawyer. They don't get to talk to a family member. They are packed in like sardines. There are mass reports of disease. Hundreds have died in this facility, CCOT, which opened only at the start of 2023. So it's been 2 years and change, and there have been hundreds of deaths there. They have no sheets. They have no pillows. They are stacked on top of one another and sleep in these like steel barracks. And there's mass abuse by these prison guards. That's where this man, this husband, who came here legally using the Venezuelan parole program that was put in place under Biden, was going to be sent to for coming to this country legally.
And as far as like, you know, the slippery slope here, you've got completely hysterical Democrats out there saying that we should not deport U.S. citizens to these jails. And this guy, Senator John Kennedy. Oh, wait a second. We pull up a tear sheet on this. Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana, Republican, is out there now having to feel somewhat obligated to say publicly the president should not be deporting U.S. citizens to foreign jails. Is that not like, I mean,
Yeah.
and Gavin Newsom thinks it's just it's a distraction. When a Republican senator feels it's necessary to stake a claim that the president should not be deporting Americans to foreign prisoners, it seems to me there may be a bigger problem here.
Well, that's the thing. The Abrego Garcia thing, that's only really, there's a few reasons that that's the most prominent. One, because they admitted in court that there was a mistake, and that's why Stephen Miller tried to backfill it, saying, no, it actually wasn't a mistake. And he's also a union guy. But if we can send somebody there through any kind of accident and not get them back, then you can't send anyone there at all. And frankly, like that, it proves why you can't send anyone outside of your jurisdiction legally.
But we know that, and then that's the other point is that they're lying about that, which we saw, and that was part of what the Van Hollen visit was so important in terms of like what it accomplished, because this means, Sam, that Bukele can no longer argue that he can't release him because he did. Because he took him out of CCOT or wherever he'd been transferred to after.
Isn't that part of the CCOT program? You get to go and have margaritas like once a day or something like that?
That's another thing. I want to correct myself because on Friday, it had looked like they had photoshopped it, but Van Hollen had a press conference later in the afternoon where he said, no. They insisted that we do this photo near the pool. They tried to do it, but then they settled, I guess, for the lobby area. And they had brought out cocktails with salt on the rim and maraschino cherries for a photograph, and then Van Hollen and his people took it away. So they were trying to make it look like, no, those horrible images that I just described to you out of CCOT that you're seeing, that's not the reality. We'll troll you and say he's actually at some sort of resort. But that also shows that they're scared about the politics of it too. They undercut themselves by showing they can take him out. And then they also showed weakness, basically, about like their fear about what this looks like and how the rest of the public is reacting to it.
And we should note that there are 4 Democratic House members who landed in El Salvador as of this morning. Democratic reps Robert Garcia of California, Maxwell Frost of Florida.
Nice.
Yasamin Ansari of Arizona and Maxine Dexter of Oregon are in El Salvador. They're planning to meet with officials at the U.S. Embassy to advocate for Abrego Garcia's release and get information on other detainees transferred to El Salvador from the U.S.
Good.
Frost, in a statement, accused the Trump administration of, quote, running a government-funded kidnapping program, illegally arresting, jailing, and deporting innocent people with zero due process, which Abrego Garcia is merely the latest victim.
That's a really important point, that there's a lot of people who are afraid to get their names publicized because of fear of retribution.
You're not going to have that many. I mean, you got to think about, like, even if, first of all, when you deport people, sending them to a prison is not deportation. Right. It's not deportation. If there are, and I have no doubt, well, I assume there are undocumented immigrants who were sent to El Salvador. I don't know what stage of the process they were in, a legal process. More than likely, they were involved in some legal process. That's how their names were on a list. But sending them to a prison is not deportation. Sending them to a prison without any due process or even what appears to be any evidence of any crime committed, like criminal offense as opposed to civil offense, I should say. So good for those lawmakers heading down there. And again, if a Republican senator feels it necessary to say that we cannot do the same thing with U.S. citizens, then he at least is aware of where they're heading with this. We just had a IM from, I think it was somebody just missed it. But folks saying they have relatives who are work for ICE, and they're all getting mentally prepared to do this with citizens. But regardless, that's not even necessary for this to cause this level of alarm. Here is Tom Homan going on and justifying what ICE has been doing.
Got to protect this country.
And you're saying there's no mistakes? No mistakes. That everybody's sent to this prison, again, with no guarantee of any right to...
This is the thing, is that this is a completely secondary question. It doesn't matter whether there's no mistakes. Because Homan nor John Carl is in a position to make this assessment. That's why you have due process.
Yes.
That's where that assessment happens. And even if Tom Homan is 100% sure that all of their police work and it's not even police work, all of their thuggery is mistake-free, the point is he is not in a position to make that assessment. That's not the way our system works.
Right.
That everybody's sent to this prison, again, with no guarantee of any right to have a chance to challenge their imprisonment, any prospect of release. And they didn't go through a full, and none of these people, as you've acknowledged, have gone through a full trial.
You need to read the Alien Enemies Act. We follow the Alien Enemies Act, and you're talking like it's a Title VIII removal. It isn't a Title VIII removal. That's a different procedure.
Yeah, so you're acknowledging without
Congress,
without
Alien Enemies Act.
So no extended proceedings, no chance to prove their innocence. Somebody's got a bad tattoo.
I'm telling
somebody's
you, we can go.
Been accused. I mean, you acknowledge tattoos are part of the calculation here. I mean, you might have a tattoo.
There's one factor out of many factors. I worked. Have you been an alien gang squad? Because I have. Tattoos are one of many factors that's going to determine some of the gangs. It's not the only one. You can't say, okay, tattoo gang member. No, there's other indices that's added to that tattoo. Tattoo is one factor that adds to other factors that makes that determination. What I'm saying is you can't ignore a tattoo. That's one more factor that leads you to believe maybe he's a gang member. It's just not based on tattoos. It's based on a lot of other things, but tattoos one of many. But no one's removed just because of a tattoo.
Secret things. We do other secret things.
We just cite the Real Madrid football team tattoo. But, there's a whole bunch of other
tattoos,
evidence we're not
but there's
talking
also,
about.
you're also forgetting, John Carl, baseball caps.
If you have to ask about it, you're not cool enough to
You're
know
not
about
automatically a gang member unless with just a tattoo. You also got to be wearing a baseball cap. I mean, this guy's a freaking idiot.
Yeah.
Just an absolute thug.
How could you say that? He sounds so articulate.
And the other part is that at the very least now, Homan is recognizing he argues that under the Alien Enemies Act, there need to be no due process. The due process is suspended under the invocation of that act.
Great point.
Now, the Supreme Court's going to decide whether you can invoke that act in a period of what is clearly not war. Because if you can invoke that act right now because of the supposed invasion by MS-13 or Trenta de Agua, when can't you?
Yeah. Also, there was the makeup artist that I talked about who had no police record. There was also the man with the autism awareness tattoo that they scooped up just for having tattoos.
There's this guy outlined in El Faro, which is a great Central American paper. U.S. wife seek out deportee. This is Jesus Alberto Ruiz Andrade.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. Put it up there. Okay, not just tattoos, baseball cap.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He was a Lakers fan. Look at that.
Okay.
There's a bunch of gang members watching the Timberwolves win a game
looking,
last.
Right?
Yeah.
Baseball cap again.
Buying groceries.
Right.
We don't know what's in those
His wife doesn't know if he's alive or dead now.
We don't know what's in those bags. Yeah. Yeah, that's not.
Should also say there is some history here, and I think one of the things that would be interesting is to see what the nature of this deal that the Trump people have with Bukele.
Yes.
In 2015, or prior to 2015, my understanding is that there was an agreement between the then government in El Salvador with MS-13 to essentially tamp down violence in El Salvador, which provided MS-13 with some easing of their business, the business that they were running, and sort of the situation for people who are in prison. And then in 2015, the U.S. government started cracking down on MS-13 in this country. And that one of the ways that Bukele got back into power was to strike a deal with MS-13 to roll back in the sort of those issues. We will not
send you to America?
We will not send you to America. We will attempt to get you back from America if you're in their prison system. We will make the prison system here for MS-13 members a little bit more comfortable. We will allow for business decisions to be made out of prison, et cetera, et cetera. And just recently, I don't have this in front of me, the Trump administration released a MS-13 member that the DOJ was apparently
after.
Yeah, was after, and sent back. Here it is, April 10th. Pop this up. Justice Department drop all charges against man it called a top MS-13 gang leader. It dropped all charges against a Salvadoran man. Motion was filed after Pam Bondi and other law enforcement had announced the arrest of Henry Josu Valentro Santos at a news conference. Now, they may end up sending or trying to send this guy back to El Salvador, but apparently there's a saying in El Salvador about not wanting to be, better to die in El Salvador than to live in a U.S. prison.
I do think it's interesting that Elon Musk and Bukele met at his Texas facility in 2024. Elon Musk also met with Argentinian far-right crypto president, similar ideologically to a guy like Bukele, met with him in Texas also in 2024. Bukele also has a coffee business that's registered in the United States with I think it's an LLC that is in Miami. There's like a lot going on here that we don't know about.
I think there's a lot to come out. We'll see how hard they defend this going forward.
But they're all of these guys, the ones they're involved in crypto. We know that there is a financial deal with the government of El Salvador for this prison exchange system or whatever for taking our deportees. So you got to wonder how, is Bukele getting personally enriched on top of that with a U.S.-based LLC to sell coffee as the head of state in El Salvador.
Side gig.
Part of it is
hustle.
Part of it, yeah. It's his new hustle because the crypto thing. The World Bank's like, hey, if you want these loans, you're gonna have to stop making crypto mandatory for retailers to take. And he's like, oh yes, okay. I'm now the penal colony space exporter to the world instead of the new money utopia guy.
All right, we gotta go. Into the fun half.
We gotta go.
We got to go. Folks, your support helps this program survive and thrive. You want the free half, free of commercials? You want access to the fun half? You want to keep us keeping on, as we say very often around the office?
So often.
Join themajorityreport.com. When you do, you will help us keep on keeping on. JoinTheMajorityReport.com. Also, don't forget Just Coffee, Fair Trade Coffee, hot chocolate. Use the coupon code Majority for 10% off. Russ, did you get that email? I forwarded you an email. We got to fix that in the YouTube description. I think we inadvertently put 20% off there. I think we got it conflated.
Craps abound.
Yep, there you go.
I like that one.
JustCoffee.coop. Great value, and you can get the Majority Report blend. Matt, what's happening on Left Reckoning?
Left Reckoning episodes abound. Tomorrow night, we're going to have Megan Day on talking about Doge, and Griscom and I did a Sunday show for folks talking about AOC's rise in polling and some other stuff. It's a little bit loud. Patreon.com/Left Reckoning.
I was going to say, whoa.
An irresistible internet lure.
Oh, my God. All right, folks. See you in the fun half.
3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now. And I don't think it's going to be the same as it looks like in 6 months from now. And I don't know if it's necessarily going to be better 6 months from now than it is 3 months from now. But I think around 18 months out, we're going to look back and go like, wow. What? What is that going on? It's nuts. Wait a second. Hold on for a second.
The Majority Report.
Emma, welcome to the program.
Hey.
Matt.